Hi there. So happy to be here. So happy to be here with Kelly and Jason. I know you know both of them, especially if it's Thursday. You know Kelly after about 150 episodes or whatever. Plus, Kelly has this beautiful show, The Awesome Journey with Christy Howard at 1:11 p.m. on Tuesdays, which is very worthwhile. And if you haven't checked it out, you should because the stories are so compelling and relatable. And I think that's what we want to do here is bring value. And it just happens value is the word of the day. Chat's open now. Want to hear what everybody else feels about value if possible. And introduce yourself, even if it's just to say you're here and where you're from. We'd love to recognize you and support you in any way possible. With that said, I'll turn it over to kind of Kelly. Kelly can bring us up to date. I'm so proud and honored to have built so much with Kelly and have so much fun doing it. So, Kelly.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yeah, value. What a great word, because we were just very briefly saying before we came on the value of doing lives. I mean, that's definitely got to be part of, I think, the conversation today for so many different reasons. And how to make that become a value. It isn't just about doing the live. It is what's behind it. Making those connections with folks and building a relationship, a valuable relationship, which I just don't think so many people are. I mean, everybody hears me. If you follow me at all, you know that I almost regularly complain about the dreaded pitch slap because y'all, it doesn't work. And please stop it. Like, just stop the madness. It does not work. Oh, it's so annoying. And create a relationship with people. There is really nothing worse than getting something in your inbox on a connection and being like, hey, I notice you're in this space of doing whatever. I got the solution for you. And it's like, well, first of all, you clearly did not look at my profile. The Awesome Journey is a live stream. It's not a business. So I don't need your sales team. But having value in what you bring to someone else and understanding that it isn't always about, can I work with everybody I connect with? Because it's those connections that you don't know until later that come back and you're like, oh my gosh, that person that Jason knew, or I just met somebody that would be a great connection for Jason to do a speaking thing. That's relationship. And there's true value in doing that for others. And we'll probably keep going back to this, I think, with the three of us, is it is all about paying it forward and helping others and giving to others and being heart-centered, which I love that Jason always talks about that, because that's important. Doing things that are genuinely authentic and true to who you are do add value to other people. And there's nothing better than watching other people succeed. We're the only person we're in competition with is ourselves. So I don't know why people sometimes hold their connections like this person's mine. And I don't get that. Like, why don't you want to see everyone do amazing things? There's plenty of space for that. So that's my start on value for this morning.
Well, Jason, I think you're off to a great start because Kelly gave us a lift off. What's your initial thoughts?
It's great, and thank you for having me here today, joining you and Kelly on the show. I always love to join in this group. There's always value here. Yeah, value is a great word. You know, Donna and I off screen, we were talking about the value and values, and we could talk about both. But I think we're talking about value today and about the worth. And I like to start with definitions. Just to get it kicked off. And two that I found that kind of spoke to me that I'd like to dig into later on today is the importance or worth or usefulness of something. And the other one I got was consider someone or something to be important or beneficial, and that getting value. And to Kelly's point, the second one, consider someone or something important or beneficial. I think true value doesn't come from looking at it as, oh, what can I get out of this? Yes. True value is what can I give to this? What can I add to this? I think that's the true value, and that's like this community is. We're also earlier talking about what I'm seeing from this community, and I get so much value out of it. And I'm hoping that I'm reciprocity. I'm hoping I'm returning value to everyone, to the community and those that are there. But from the beginning, it starts with what can I give? What value can I put into this and see this? And I was going to talk about this later, but I do want to add. So I want to add to kick it off. If you buy a $1,500 blender and it's got all these gadgets and does all this crazy stuff, and you use it to chop ice, and you're like, man, I don't get any value out of this. That's up to us to get value out of these things. That's up to you. If you go through a training, and of course it has to be a good blender, and of course the training has to be a good training. But when you talk about getting value from something, that's inside. You have to find that value. You have to not be looking at why it doesn't work for you. You have to look at how it does work for you and really enjoy these things and get the benefit out of it. And I think that's this community, is that you have to see, okay, what's the positive? What can I give to it? And how can I see the value in what I get from it?
Yeah, I think those are great insights. And, I've learned over time, because most people are used to fast. I give something, I get something. I get something, and then I give something. And it gets transactional, gets superficial, gets into judgment, gets into keeping score, which is all pulling you away from your true value. And one should find themselves trying to earn everybody's inclusion and respect and appreciation. And the only way you can do that is to give all you got for everybody around you. And that starts the cycle of everybody else learning together, but also feeling some level of obligation, either out of gratitude or guilt, to say, hey, I got to come back with something. If someone gives you something wonderful and life-changing, whether you can immediately compensate or support that person is really conditional. But knowing that inside, hey, that person really did me a lot of good. That allowed me to be who I always could be, but I couldn't find the door. I couldn't find the direction. And not only that, but we're doing it in front of a crowd. And when you honor people in front of people, you honor yourself more. You always respect that person who's pulling out the chair for somebody to sit down, or opening the door, or helping somebody with groceries. And if it comes naturally, you ascribe to that. You say to yourself, how come I'm not doing more for just people around me, without figuring I'm going to get something? Because once you do that, you kind of destroy some of the value, right? Because it's not pure. It's going to split it with you. Or maybe I'll give you a better percentage, but I need something. And when you feel confident, when you feel secure, you don't need anything. You have everything you need. And one thing I've learned also, it's the heart. All the people I'm working with and have worked with have great hearts. They really have a propensity to do better, because they feel better about doing better. They don't just obligate themselves, well, I'll get more if I do this, because over time, you can't hide who you are, and it'll come out. And people love consistency. And that's why some people tune into shows all the time, because they know what they can expect. They know who they're going to be with. Makes it more comfortable. With that said, we got a great lineup already in the audience. Carl's here. If you don't know Carl, you definitely should. He's one of the shining bright lights on LinkedIn. Always has a smile, always willing to support and help. I know he flew out on, what was it, Tuesday night to go to Chicago to be at a crowdfunding event that he spent 15 minutes on the stage, and flew back last night. And that takes quite a commitment, right? But you never know what you don't know. Like Kelle said, you plant a seed and you forget you even planted it, and one day it shows up on you. Yeah. And if you plant enough of these seeds, pretty soon you're not coming from scarcity, you're coming from abundance and choices and options, and you can bring more value, and people pick up your energy. People know you're sincere. And we talked a little bit earlier about being spontaneous, about being in the moment, about saying what you just heard or thought about, versus, okay, in 2 days, I'm going to be in front of this group. Here's how I'm going to present. Here's my thing. people can tell the difference. Carrie's here. Carrie says, what does a potato say on a sunny morning? What a mashing day. I'll have to say this, Carrie, that's 3 straight days of 3 straight potato jokes. So maybe you're reading from the potato joke book today. Carl says, to Carrie, Beverly is, I think, here or close to being here. I know she sent a nice little comment about being here. And, you know, when everybody is giving so much, everybody is getting so much because of the collective. Not, you know, maybe a little bit from Carl, a little bit from Kelly, a little bit from Harvey. And I am so impressed with the growth and the evolution of so many people who are great people to start with. But they finally got a voice. They finally got a platform. And they finally got to do it their way for the change. So, Kelly, now that I caught you in the middle of a sip.
Yeah, so many great things that you both said, as per usual, because I do think it's important to know that you yourself are adding value to something, right? Particularly, I mean, since we are on LinkedIn, talking about work. For me, my entire career has always been motivated, probably fired up, if you will, when I feel I'm adding value. And when you add value somewhere, I think part of that is feeling that sense of community, which we talk a lot about here. When we feel that sense of community and we feel safe and supported, we are more apt to do things that we likely would not do without those things lined up, because we'll take risks. And then we feel more carefree to do it because there's no fear. We're not being led by fear to stop us from going, gosh, I'm going to get judged if I do that, or you know, my boss might not like it if I do something else that, you know, overshines them. You know, all the things that go on in a organization. But personally, to have the value to show up to work every day. And I will say that's one of the blessings that came out of 2020 for me, because being laid off for the first time in my career and not being able to get hired was devastating to me personally, because I had never had that problem of getting hired ever. And so it was that whole thing of introspection of, oh my gosh, I had no idea how much I placed my own value on what my job was and what I was accomplishing in my work life. And now being able to have things be arranged to where I look at my calendar in the morning or the night before, whatever it is, when I know on certain days, I don't ever sit at my calendar anymore and go, oh, I've got that meeting tomorrow with that person, where we know like the value gets sucked right out of us because we're going to be in a room where either we're hearing the same meeting over and over and over again. We've all had that person in our life. Oh, the worst. Or just knowing it didn't matter what you said and you don't try anymore because you feel so devalued. So you don't bring any more ideas to the table because there isn't that sense of community where you feel safe, supported. So it's like, why bother? Not going to put it out there. So I think there's so many different ways, and it always does fascinate me that we can take a word and see how it impacts us in so many different ways, because we can feel devalued when we're not surrounded by people who want us to soar. So be careful about who you surround yourself with, who's in your community, who you do collaborative work with. Because anyone in a collaboration group, a community, they should all want you to do great. If anyone's trying to pull you down, they're not your people. Move on to a different tribe. So there's my value this time around.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Jason, I know you've been through transitions, military, business, working for people, now working for yourself. How have you seen value changed over time for you?
I think that, you know, to Kelly's point and to the question, the one constant in everything you just mentioned is me. Yeah. I was there as a high school kid. I was there as a Marine. I was there as a boyfriend. I was there, you know, as we go through all these stages, I was always there. And so valuing myself, and that's hard, that especially as you go through transitions, it's very challenging because you're not so stable on your feet. So you can be, you know, not stable on your feet. You can be like, oh, well, I don't know a lot about this, or I don't know about this, or the unknown, right? Yeah. But where I'm at now in my life and what I try to help people with is having that stability inside, being centered, being strong, having that self-worth, that value as we're talking about it, and know that you are good enough. And, today is enough. And as I went through these transitions in my life, that was what I had to stick with, is that beacon of light inside, that understanding that you've got this. You're going to be able to figure this out. You're going to be able to transition to this, and I didn't know the words. I didn't know the strategies back when I was younger. Like, speaking to it now in the past, though, from the past, I know that I had what it took. I know I had the strategies inside, and that was very important, is having that confidence and knowing that I had something to offer and that I had something to give, and that I could find, to use the word again, I could find value in whatever I did. So stepping out, I wasn't looking for, as I transitioned, it wasn't like, well, I have to go into this because I know about this. It was like, no, you have a lot to offer to anybody. And it might not be as much to some groups. You might not bring, you walk into every room. You're not going to be the brightest star in every room. And that's great. If you're the brightest star in every room, what do they say? Find another room,
Yes.
to grow from and to learn from. But that was it for me, though, is that as I went through these transitions and just really valuing myself and saying, you're good enough. You got this. You're going to learn. You're going to be able to handle it. And then just going from there.
That's beautiful, because I think what you really touch on is identity. And most people identify with what they do, not who they are. Right? You have somebody, well, I'm an engineer at Microsoft. Well, that tells me nothing about you, but your identity is what you're doing for who you're doing it with. And to your point, wherever you go, that's where you are. And no matter who you're with, you come home to yourself every night, and you have to determine, am I proud of what I'm doing? Am I happy? Like Kelle says, I could never do 700 shows or 500 or 600 in a row if I didn't love doing this, right? Because there's no direct financial benefit, but knowing that is okay. It's different if you're working for somebody and they promise you a paycheck and you don't get it. Then you get really disappointed and frustrated. But if you know there's a higher good, a better good, and all you got to do is be good enough to be able to align with it. Wanting and needing is not the same thing as deserving. Everybody could want something, but have you earned it? Are you worth it? And can you sustain it? And people make your life beautiful and they make your life sad, depending on who you're with and what you're involved with them. And then everybody having to be responsible and accountable every time they're together, because trust is so hard to build and so easy to lose. Right? It will only take a couple really bad words or some bad actions for someone to just be, we're not going to have this person anymore. But it is that shining star that hasn't really shined fully that people start to identify. I remember Harvey's first story was when he went to the beach as a kid and he stayed there for 2 hours to find someone's lost diamond ring. Right? And those stories stick with you. And when you see that person, you still see that kid diving into the pool or the ocean or whatever it was. And why would that person say that? Because they could have experienced or said anything about anything, but they chose that because that was their shining hour. And I know in other shows, we always talk, the only thing that's important is your story. And everybody's got a story. Everybody's got experiences. How do you perceive those now? And saying goodbye is just as important as saying hello. And sometimes it's the thing that you need to do to get to hello. Too many people hold on to things that don't work for them, hold on to people that don't serve their soul like they're hoped to or used to. And it's your responsibility to say, I'm worth more. I deserve better. And I know I can find better. But the other thing, this platform allows you to speak through your heart and really be heartfelt, as opposed to being smart, as opposed to being whatever, because you should never define yourself it takes that opportunity away from the people you're with. Let them see it for themselves the way they want to see it. And, you model for people. And everything you do, someone could just say, hey, that's how I want to start doing it. Or that's a good thought or a good saying. And little by little, if you do enough of this, gosh, you've got a storehouse full of value from the people. And the other thing is, not only you become a friend, you become part of the family. And you never have enough family when you get right down to it, especially the family that's thinking about you, hoping for you, promoting you. Like Kelly says, referring people, sharing people, and I think, it's like trading cards or anything. It's like, well, I've got this card now. Would anybody like to see it? We've got Terrence, who's just a wonderful gentleman, known him for a few years, has doing some great work. Great to see you, Terrence. Eventually you grow old enough to have stories about your stories. And, hopefully some of the worst stories become gentler over time, or you don't look at it as a negative, but a learning lesson, that was important for you to allow you to pivot or take the other fork in the road. So Kelly, I know you've also gone through tremendous change, but it also shows you're capable of tremendous change.
Yeah. I mean, so many great things, again, that you all just said, but change is just part of life. I mean, it's we can't not have it. I mean, trying to avoid it, it's going to happen. That's part of what we do. And the stories about stories, of course, I love that. But sharing our stories, I think there's so much value in that. So on a deeper level too, because I've certainly have talked to people that'll say like, well, my story is not that big of a deal. And then you're like, you were an undercover FBI agent for 26 years. Like you're not, yours is inspiring and motivating. But our stories for us, and I also know people who have not been ready to talk about their story. As an example, I couldn't talk about domestic violence for years because I was still living in the shame of it. But talking about it can be cathartic for self. So there's value in it for ourselves of healing. And owning that, because we can't undo our story. Like it is what it is. So you might as well embrace it. and you would be shocked at how many people it will hit. Even if, me using the FBI, undercover FBI agent in this example, as an example, even though you weren't an FBI agent, I guarantee a lot of things that he said we can all relate to because we're human beings and we all have similar feelings and experiences to things. But sharing also helps change and give value to someone else. And I've said this about doing live streaming from the very beginning. I didn't know what the heck I was doing or what I was trying to do. I just knew I was trying to find more value in my own self because I was feeling very disconnected. I wasn't feeling fulfilled in my purpose. And just knew I was being guided by my own prayer and by my faith to be like, this is what you need to be doing. It helps people having conversation. It adds value. And knowing if you can just change the course of one person's life, and then you would honestly be shocked at how many stories, I mean, as Dawn and I combined, I can't even think about, well over 1,000 shows easily that we've done, and the thousands of stories, and you as well, Jason, that you've heard from other people and how they impact other people's lives. Getting that one email that says, hey, I just wanted you to know I listen in and this changed my life when I heard this person's story, or when you said this, it gave me hope. I recently just was part of a campaign, and a lot of you probably see this too. I've been posting a lot about Not Today, hashtag Not Today. It is a movement because it's following a retired police officer who recently committed suicide. And it's to bring light, hope, motivation to everyone to be able to, start your day every day and say, for those of you who are Game of Thrones fans, that's where it came from, is what do you say to the God of death? Not today. And that works for anyone with whatever you're struggling with. If you're struggling with some kind of addiction, to stay sober. to be able to say every morning, not today, it's not happening today. I am going to defeat you today, and I am going to rise and add value in my own life. And being part of that movement, and I do encourage everyone to go look at the video on YouTube under the Suffering Podcast. I'll share the link, and it is on my profile. I can't watch it without crying. I've seen it I don't know how many times, and I still cry because it's so motivational. But all of these people got together out of one email and one text message that a person sent saying, hey, I want to turn this pain into purpose. I want to turn this suffering into success and help others. I want to keep one more person from feeling like this is the answer. And the value that adds, and all from the things that you both were just saying these 2 times around as well, is everybody who participated did it out of the goodness of their own heart. There's nothing in return. It's just they spent their few seconds doing something that is for the greater good. And what value that is, that reach that video is going to have on people is insurmountable. Like, we'll never know how many people that is going to touch. And those are the things that you look at and you feel like, wow, that was something really special to be a part of. And all it was a few seconds of my time and being present. And forgetting about the transactional part and the money. I always feel like, y'all, we can all read right through that. When you have a transactional motivation behind what you're doing, people know it. And it doesn't feel good. So I'll leave it there.
Well, you left a lot, and that was all.
You're welcome.
You. So, Jason, take that and run with it.
Yeah, there's so much here. So it's such a rich conversation, and stories. Talking about stories. That's what it's all about, and that's where I work in metaphor and in indigenous cultures, shamanic healers, Jungian psychology. It all goes to story. And the stories we tell ourselves. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier about having value in myself. What story can I tell myself about where I'm at and what's going on? And so I just want to mention that because stories is where I live. That's my story. That's what I do. And then when I want to talk about posting, and maybe we'll get to that about, posting stories and metaphors, because talking about reaching people, you don't know where someone's at. And if I come out and I talk technically, I love what I do. I love mental health. I love psychology. I love neurolinguistics. I'm very passionate about it. But what I do and my place in the world is it's an art and a science. And I love the art part of it too. I love the nuance of it. I love, one soul talking to another soul. And I might be going a little off script here, but I'm going to get back to it. I love that part. And so touching people is very important to me. And so giving value on LinkedIn, you're talking about, it's kind of looping back to, it's also business. So I could share technical papers about psychology and mental health and stuff. And I do sometimes, I do some of the technical stuff, but I'd rather share a story. I'd rather share something funny and light that reaches more people, that someone's not going to feel like, oh, you're beating me over the head with this. It might just be something they read, but it sticks with them. That's change happens in the unconscious mind. And not the analytical mind. That's not where change happens. And so because it's a business site, I do share certain things, but I keep in mind to be true to who I am and what value do I want to give people. I want to share with people because I want everyone to have positive mental health at the bottom line, kind of simplistic. But so I share both. I share a little bit of, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You can trust me on this sense. Here's some of the white papers, whatever. But then also here's some fun stuff, and here's some metaphors, and here's some things that hopefully you can get your hands around. So I really try to work on that to share that, and adding value to any conversation we're in. To Kelly's point, you don't know who's listening. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know that someone can't make a comment on a post. Or, reach out here. I love the community here. I love that because it does help. It enriches the conversation for sure. But everyone that's out there listening that's not engaging because maybe they're not ready for it yet.
That's right.
What value are we giving them? And it's for everybody. It's for everyone. So that's why I love this LinkedIn Live, because to use the word heart-centered, I think we're all coming from that because, yesterday I was on here with Don and Dave, and I was so in that mode, I got out of my own head and I couldn't say anything. So Don had to throw it back to Dave because I was processing and I was like kind of going through, and I was like, yeah, that's really good. And Don passed it back to me and said, Jason, what do you think? And I was like, that was a lot. And he's like, well, I'll throw it back to Dave. And that's where, and that's kind of funny. But that's kind of where a lot of us are at, where, we're hopefully we're being touched by what's being said. That's the value that we can offer. And I'll leave it.
Yeah. And, to Kelly's point and to what you just mentioned, Jason, early on, and Kelle was part of it, I think in the first 3-4 months, I had 2 different people send me a message saying that it prevented them from taking their own life.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, you wonder, wow, I didn't know this could be this powerful and important. And how could you not continue? Because that validates what you're saying. And if you save one person or allow someone to do something they always wanted to do but didn't feel they were ready or confident enough to do, all of a sudden it starts changing the world because everybody influences a bunch of other people.
Right.
Those 2 people who might have left this earth a little early, they had families, they had friends, they had all these people that they really forgot about in a way because they got too much into their situation. And everybody's been through traumatizing situations. Most people have found some level of anxiety or depression in their life. So if you have, you can relate to it. And you're really grateful you're not there, even though you know what it is to be there. And that's, how do you put a paycheck? How do you put compensation on that? When were you working in a retail store and you said, well, I changed the world, I influenced so many people, and this gives you a chance to have value. And I think everybody wants to provide value and receive valuable recognition, not for any status or career, but hey, it was important. And if it's important, I want to start doing more important things that can help more people. And most of the people who go on to become great authors or speakers, they started this way. Yeah. And eventually people got recognized, and people want to be with people they are familiar with, they feel safe with. The other aspect, and Beverly and Kathy and I talked about, was listening. And until you listen, you don't hear. Until you listen, you can't really speak, because all you're doing is making a presumption or an assumption. You're judging way too fast with something you may not know, and you can put people off. You can turn people away. If someone's having a hard time, the last thing they want to know is how to fix it. Just do this, this, and this. Or just read this book, or just do this. And that's too late for that stuff. Right. They just want someone to have a shoulder to lean on. They just want someone to say, it's not as bad as you think. And I know if you can't do it, maybe we can do it. And that was a common thread early on in the show, is if you're not enough, we may be enough to fill the gap, to get you over that hump. It's like almost tutorial. Dennis is here. It's a good day. Agree, keep it simple. The new KISS principle is keep it simple, smarty. I like that much better than stupid.
That's great.
And Dennis also comes back. Great week and a strong week. Thanks for helping us. Well, Dennis, you help so many people by being here, you and Carrie. And, it shows a discipline that every day people can get nurtured. People can get fortified. People can get recognized. And knowing someone cares, someone knows you exist. Many people fade into the shadows, and it's a lonely, dark place. And moving towards the light with people who love you. And I think love is something that's so important, and so few people express, so few people receive. Because it's almost like you got to go to the moon and back for someone that says, I love you. Or you almost have to lose somebody, to feel how much love you have for them. And the last thing anybody wants is knowing I could have shown some love earlier or larger. Just an example, Ann came back from getting her hair done yesterday, and it was just gorgeous. It really was. As soon as I saw it, I said, wow, that is beautiful. And I went out of my way to tell her that. And no one knows a lot of stuff until someone else shares it with them. Put on an outfit and someone says, oh, that's grotesque. And it's like that outfit may never be worn again. Right? Because those are words that are like, geez, I wasn't sure, and now I'm definitely not going to do this. But it has that opposite effect. When you can tell somebody, you are so important, you are so special, and I'm happy I can see it. And hopefully it'll come to you, or other people will continue to see it, or just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. It's not everything, but it's moving you in the right way. And showing people that you are identifying changes in them and that they may not see, because people tend to take things for granted, or people tend to think they got to catch up to get even. Mm-hmm. When you're 100% of what you should be, where you are and who you are, because you're unique. There is nobody in the world exactly like you. And that makes everybody special. So Kelly.
Wow, so much to take out of that. One of the things, though, I do want to go on, and I know you won't be surprised by this, is the love part. Because when we started doing this, a year and a half ago, which is crazy to think it's been that long, we had no word of the day. There was and we didn't have any history of talking about how live stream could impact you or help you in your business, or, achieve other goals. We were just literally going live, and the audience was bringing on, and they were from all over the globe. And it was just we were fascinated by it. I'm like, wow, why are people showing up every day? But it's because we're showing up, and we're just present in the moment, and everybody wants the same thing. They just need to feel, they love community, feeling safe, supported, and love. That's the international language, and it translates regardless of your story, your journey, whatever it is. We all can relate to that, and that was at the core of it. And that's when it started hitting me personally, as far as like, wow, there's so much power in this just for showing up and being you. And I think, to go back to a point that Jason made earlier, and I've said this too, what live streaming has helped me with is being comfortable with myself and valuing my imperfections and my quirkiness, like all of it. I lose my train of thought mid-sentence sometimes, but it's like, well, that's just real life. Like, that happens on an occasion. And the corporate America version of me would have been mortified by that, because I didn't realize how programmed corporate America can make us feel. Because I had to have things be perfect. I had to have legal and compliance. So there was a sense of perfection in my work, but you picked that up over time. And that was like the last thing I needed, was to have my perfectionism more exemplified. It's just accepting for who we are. And then it also taught more about listening. Like, that is such a gift when you really, and I think someone previously, and I can't remember who, talked about active listening. And that's so important, because we miss so much. If you sit there, and we've all seen it, I've seen this in corporate America at so many boardroom tables, it's kind of sick. But I could see when I would say something, or even somebody else, and you could be seeing the person directly across from you, and you see the wheels turning, and they're not hearing what's coming out of your mouth anymore, because they're calculating what they're going to be saying in response to what you just said, without hearing the rest of it. And when we do listen and focus on being present in the moment and really hearing somebody else, it changes so many things about what we view, because everything is a lesson. And knowing that my judgment on somebody else has nothing to do with them. It's all about me. And even having that flip and being able to understand and notice in ourselves, like, why am I judging that Jason's wearing that plaid shirt today? What is that impacting on me? I'm not. I really like your shirt. Which is why I said that, because it's not true. But it's because it's hitting something in us that's disturbing us. It has nothing to do with the other person. And then I think, lastly, before I toss it back over to you, Jason, is something of understanding when people come at you or say something mean to you, or which hasn't happened on this platform, knock on wood, LinkedIn specifically, it's about them. It has nothing to do with you. And I do love the quote, and it's one that I probably don't repeat often enough. Your opinion of me is none of my business, because that's all about you. That really isn't about me. I need to be comfortable with me and value who I believe that I am. And when you go out into the world, I guess one last thing, the whole love thing, I think it's hard for people to put their love out there out of fear of it being rejected or it being trampled on, because unfortunately, you can't get through life without having your heart broken. And we can get afraid of putting things out there. But man, when you just put it out there all the time and knowing like, hey, this is just me, it feels so much better than that whole being guarded and having to worry about like, oh, is somebody going to say something different? It's such a release, and it makes things so much easier. That's my thoughts right this time around.
Yeah, that was terrific, Kelle. So, Jason.
Yeah, so many good things. And yeah, the art of listening. I've at professional level, in corporate, I actually taught a modality to managers. And one of the lessons was listening to learn. And it was a communication model we taught. And it was a 2-day class, a lot of different things, DISC and a lot of other stuff, and learn how to communicate. But it's really about active listening and about being present for there. And I'll write a note down every now and then, because I want to talk about that. But it's great about being here together. And I have the techniques. I have a lot of training. I have thousands of hours of training in what I do. And one of the biggest ways I give value to my clients is listening to them. Mm. I always start off and say that 2 things. Here's the rules. I have no judgment. Anything you tell me, I'm not judgment. I'm here to help you. And I'm going to take everything you tell me as the complete truth. And then we start from there. And, I've had clients, and so, it's a lot of a conversation, and we talk, and it's a lot of listening to them and hearing what they're actually saying. But it's also being present for them as well, to have that sounding board. I have I come into every session with 2 or 3 techniques like that based on the work that we're doing that I want to get to. But if we don't get to it, we don't get to it. And I had a client one time, he's a current client. He actually told me, Jason, the part that I like best about our time together is when I can just tell you what's going on and I can get your feedback, or you're just listening and you're there for me, And so I adjusted that, but that's the truth with most of us, right? Most of us, even with our relationships, sometimes your spouse, your significant other, your siblings, whatever it might be, people close to you, if you don't feel they're listening to you and really hearing what you're trying to convey, it hurts even worse than if no one listened to you at all, because you're like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I want to, because we want to be heard. And that's something that we can do for all of us. The other thing I wanted to mention, go ahead.
I wanted to interject there, because don't you think it's one of the things, I think the people who care about us most, and because the big thing, we want to be seen and heard, right? When we say those things. But, and I think we probably all have this too, and I'm speaking for myself, is those people closest to us, sometimes when we talk about something, they immediately want to fix it. And it's like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen to me.
That's so true. And I'll even say to my wife sometimes, who are you talking to? Are you talking to your husband? Or are you talking to me as what I do? Which way? Just let me know what you have to put on. Oh, I'm just venting. Okay, let's go, or no, I want your advice. And I'm like, okay, let's talk, get on the couch. Let's talk. But it is very important. And it is something to where, that's a whole nother conversation about that, when I had a thing, just a personal quick story where they're called vocal bursts. We say, yeah. I don't do that. I'd never have done that, because I'm listening. I'm engaged. I want to know. I want more. And then when you pause, or you ready, pass me the ball, like basketball. Pass me the ball and I'm ready to go. But I got on it, and I'm sharing, maybe a little overshare, but my wife was like, are you listening? Because I wasn't doing that. And that's, we're socially conditioned for those vocal bursts. So now I do it. Now with her, I've made an effort to throw those in there. So that helps her know that I am paying attention and listening, because that's her style of communication.
Yeah.
But then sometimes she goes, oh, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I'm just acknowledging what you said. Because I'll say, oh yeah. And so that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, definitely. And that's a huge value. And that's what I wanted to talk about here too. I know we're kind of getting towards the end, believe it or not. The second half hour always goes so much faster.
Yes.
For me, my vision of these LinkedIn lives and one of the biggest values is conversation.
Mm.
Even before, we'll call it 2020, before that was lacking. And it wasn't as much as, we talked yesterday, Don, about the old days and back in the past where people would get around the dishes, or people would gather around events and do things together. We didn't have the phones and the TVs and the distractions as much as we do now. That's a whole other conversation. They serve their purpose, but yes. But the advantage of this is conversation. And people feel engaged, and people, we're all engaging with each other, of course. And that's why I love this, because I love to talk to people. But when the community pops in too, they're part of this conversation. And this is something that's inherent within the human being that we are, is having that communication and that connection. And that's why this is so important, because, if you watch, I do a lot of podcasts and they're live, but then they're recorded and a lot of people listen to them later. It's stagnant because it's not active, and you still get information. You still see the interactions. And this too, people can watch this later and hopefully they get the same benefits, but there's still more benefit to this live conversation because it has an energy about it. And I think that's the value, one of the huge values for this kind of format.
Wow, you guys gave me so much to work with. And you're right, Jason, as you run down on time, you run up on ideas and thoughts and feelings, and how relevant, how in the moment can you be? So all these lives are really based on the last comment or insight that someone has that now creates that opportunity to not only promote what they said and validate it, but to build on it. So people are putting foundations on, and you're putting a roof on it when you get your chance. And the other thing when we talk about love is some people can build a capacity that they have endless love. Right? It gets recharged almost immediately. So yeah, I can love this person now, and the next person I see, I can love them in whatever way will support them. Right? And, just encouragement that's sincere, is like, I really like this about you, or there's something special about you that every time I see you, I'm so happy to be with you. Just things like that. It doesn't have to be engineering or strategy. It just has to meet people where they are. And, conversations are important. And in the older days, again, people used to play cards at night. When there was no internet, when there was nothing really on TV, they'd get around the kitchen table and play gin rummy and have a coffee. And they'd share a little bit about this and have a little fun, but they were humans with humans. And that's dissipated because everybody's in a rush. Everybody needs to get to somewhere fast, doesn't have much time. And you're right, Jason. That's when you say, yeah. And you're thinking totally in a different world. And they know it. It's almost like dismissive. Like, the sooner I'm done with you, the sooner I'm on to what I'm on to. And as soon as you're on to that, you're on to the next thing. So it's almost like you got a destination that once you get there, you're on to your new one instead of enjoying why it was that you chose this one. So the game is definitely between you and yourself. Slow down, open your ears, take time, be focused, pay attention, and what you're doing, and that's where Bob Berg came in, was on the show once. But, what I learned is giving is the getting. Anything after that is gravy. And if you can continue to be a giver in any situation, you see a person having trouble with groceries, can I just help you with that? I'd be happy to, right? I see, this, Can I get involved? And usually it's 30 seconds, 60 seconds, but that's enough to make someone's day. That's enough that, again, what you mentioned, Jason, you never know where someone just came from. You never know what someone's going through. And a lot of people can put a false front on and a happy smile, and inside they're dying. They're not being nurtured, and just having a kind word, a smile, anything, makes all the difference. And you have capacity to do amazing things with small things. You take out your pack of gum and there's someone next to you. It'd be so easy. Would you like a slice? Right? It's going to cost you 2 cents. Sometimes they'll say no, but at least you made the offer, and I think you're proud of yourself. And, you got to trust the universe to know that everything comes to those who wait and do the right thing, and bring value, and this life is so short, so uncertain. Is why not make every day count for yourself and everybody around you? And I don't think there are coincidences. I don't think people come together just out of probability. I think there's a reason, and maybe we don't always see it. Maybe we'll never understand it. But I know this show could never be what it is without Kelle, without Harvey. Why? Because it became a blend. It wasn't like 3 separate individuals coming together as monoliths. It was like, hey, let me throw some spice into the soup. Let me add this. Let me add this. And it stays there, whether it was the word of the day. And it also makes you feel like, wow, I never knew this could happen from something that's so easy, something that's so simple, that most people make complicated, make difficult, when it was already pure and honest in its own way. And I think, Dennis made a great comment. Well, let me see. And it says, agree, show up, not off. And too many people are into impressing, into winning. In life, most people say, if I don't win, I lose. Or if they don't win, they lose. And it just shows there's only going to be one winner out of 2. But if you don't compete and you collaborate, everybody gets a seat at the table. Everybody gets a taste of whatever everybody else is experiencing. And it makes you now want to dream again, want you to believe again. Even at work, I'll have to say this. I couldn't wait for Mondays. And so many people couldn't wait to get to Friday. And it was like I was just itching to go. I mean, when the weekend came, I used it, but it's like that's 2 days before I get back into the game again, And if you see players, they're playing with injuries, they're playing, it's like, get me in the game. I'll whatever it is, I'll make it happen. And I think that's what makes you be healthier, live longer, is having so many wonderful things to look forward to. And the wonderful things to look forward to are the people. Money comes and goes. Material things can evaporate overnight for reasons beyond your even comprehension. But the people in your life, and even the people have come and gone, have such an impact on your everyday life. I always think about my mother. I always think about my grandmother. And I always go back to what would they think and do under these circumstances, and what would they want me to be and do under these circumstances. So, if you're a kid, you're always a kid to people that have contributed so much and made you who you are. And I think gratitude, and me and Kelle have talked about counting your blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Waking up in the morning and having some time to appreciate just being alive, just having another day. And at night to remember, wow, this was something that was terrific. I'm so glad I had another day here, and I just met somebody, and I just reunited with somebody. Kelle, I know we're coming up, but we still have some time. What's your thoughts?
Yes, again, so much goodness in all of that. I think it is an important reminder, and I've talked about this before and probably many times. during one of the darkest times of my life, a counselor that I was working with at the time, I had a checklist of things that I did every day. And one, it was for accomplishment purposes. And it was a basic get up, get dressed, get ready, go out and smile at someone. And as silly as that could sound to some people, it is that whole thing of you get when you give. So the point was, when I would go smile at somebody, generally people will smile back. And it was feeding me positive energy, which is what I needed, was positivity, because I had been beaten over the head with so much negativity. And over time, it was, now go smile at 4 people, 5 people, whatever it was. It is such a part of my life now, but I think of it in a way of, because it's a ripple effect. And of all the stories that I've heard from people, one gentleman in particular, he was going to take his life one day. And he had it planned. He knew what drugs he needed to go get to make it happen, the whole 9. But some stranger in the gas station walked past him and smiled at him. And that in that moment of exchange, because it's that presence of each other in that moment of acknowledgement to someone else. And he said, it just gave me the hope in that instance that, well, maybe I won't do it today. Maybe I am worth more than I think. So those small things that we do make such a huge difference, because now he, of course, is doing things. He got sober. He's changing lives. He's saving lives. He's extended his family. I mean, all of these things out of a smile. And it's like the power that we do have with one another of just giving acknowledgement and a little show of love, because that's what it is. And so think about that and go out and do that today. And like I always say, go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That's beautiful, Kelly, as always. So, Jason, you're a little frozen now, but I'll take it. And as soon as I see you unfreeze, we'll get right back to you. Dennis says, in the game, givers gain. Carl says, your smile is looking good. Thank you. I'm sure it applies to all of us. Here we have Jason back, and Dennis says, agree. If you stay a kid, you stay kidding and help me make people happy, for sure. And it's identifying and relating to opportunities that come to you. I mean, how many it hasn't happened many times, but I've been in lines in the grocery store where someone who looks like they really need the food are $1 or $2 short, right? And the person will say, well, what do you want us to put back? And I'm like, this is a golden opportunity. I got $2. Let the person have their thought or whatever it is, right? And it's the best $2 I'll spend a day. And it'll change that person's life to know that humanity has kindness still there. There are people in the world who haven't been jaded or, are always afraid, And I think, fear is one of the worst elements, because most of it never comes true, but it affects you. But the value you can bring to give people hope. And I think that's one of the best gifts, is that there is opportunity. There is a future. Take one day at a time. Take 1 minute at a time. Just breathe if you just want to get down to the basics. And you'll feel good about yourself. And as you feel good about yourself, you tend to do more good with yourself. So I think that's important. Jason, you had a little freeze there. Now you're back. You have a chance to kind of complete this in a way, say whatever your thoughts are after a show like this, which is, in my mind, just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. We talked a little bit about showing up, not showing up, and I'm so glad that I was able to show up today and join you as always. I think the most value we can give is kindness. I think kindness to ourselves, kindness to others, and whether it's giving a couple dollars at the supermarket or a smile to somebody or just one human connecting with another human, kindness, that adds value to everyone's world. And, earlier we talked about basically the quote that came up when Dawn, I forget what you had said, but the rising tide rises all ships, and if we spread a little bit of kindness, that adds value to the world, because then they might spread kindness and it might go on. what I'd like to end with is just a little, just because of who I am and what I do. When I talk to clients, I ask, what do you want? And they can give me a laundry list of what they don't want in their life. And they're focusing on what they don't want. And so we turn it around. So I end every first session with, okay, so I want you to focus on what you do want. And if it comes up something negative, oh, I don't want to do this, ask yourself, okay, what do you want instead? Same thing with value. And that's what I'll leave here with, that is value. As you go through your days and your nights and your life, find the positive value in everything that you see. And if you start finding that you can't find it, maybe that's not for you. But look for a positive value in everything in your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, when you do find it, stay there with it. When you're finally at a point of happiness, it was kind of odd, but last week or two, it occurred to me, I've never been happier in all my life. And I've been happy through my life. And how many people can actually say that right now is one of the most wonderful times I've ever had. And not only that, the future looks like it'll continue, right? So it's not just one sunny day and tomorrow the clouds are going to show up because of the people who are there. We have a chance to reinvent our families for who we are, where we are, and what we can do and what can be done for us and with us. And I think once you have that, you could climb any mountain knowing there's a safety net right behind you. And you know that even when you're not with those people are praying or hoping for you, and that's important. It's not just a time together, it's the time that stays with you forever. And when you can get those concepts, it's like a treasure trove. It's like, where do I choose? What do I do? And you just feel like there isn't enough time to do good things. Where in the past, it was like, oh, geez, if I can avoid the bad things this week, if I can just get through. And life isn't meant to be just gotten through. It's to be valued and to value others. And, a smile on somebody else's face sometimes does more than a smile on my face. Seeing a hungry person get a chance to eat is important. But we can get off and on. With that said, Jason, back. I'm glad whatever technical issues you had happened just at the end. And I want to thank Jason and Kelle, because today 3 bakers got together and baked a beautiful cake together that wouldn't have happened any other way. So I think that's important. Thank you, audience. Without you, this show wouldn't be what it is either. And it makes me want to say hello to Dennis and Carrie and everybody all the time. So you are welcome and you are valued. With that said, come back on Monday. Actually, we're going to have Ford Sykes back with Erwin Jack, who is an amazing guy. He does $50 million to $5 billion financings. Wow. And Ford is a Pro Hall of Fame speaker, only 200 in the world, that actually stopped education at 9th grade. And he's written 300 books, if you can believe it. So, like Kelle said, and everybody, I know I'm going on a little bit, it's these stories. And it gives you that hope that, hey, if he could do it or she could do it with those challenges, I know Kelle sees so many of these people in the awesome journey. It's like, this is a hop, skip, and a jump then. What I used to see was a mountain. There's a little molehill compared to what other people have done, which doesn't take the credit away from them, but just gives me the hope that I can do it. And if, again, I can't do it, could we? And if we can't do it today, can we build towards tomorrow? With that said, thank you. Go out and have a beautiful day. You all deserve it. And we'll talk again on